Picture this, a chilling vision of a Las Vegas casino, a Friday night in the year 2025. The neon facade still screams across the strip, a desperate, lurid lie. The air hangs thick with the ghosts of revelry, the stench of stale smoke and cheap perfume. The slot machines drone on, a soulless, mechanical dirge, their hypnotic lights flashing for rows of vacant chairs. At the blackjack table, a dealer performs a ghostly ritual, dealing cards to phantoms. The roulette wheel spins in a silent, pointless spectacle, its outcome witnessed by no one, while a lone waitress drifts through the cavernous aisles, her tray as empty as the promises this city once made. For decades, they sold you a myth. Vegas, the city that never slept. A playground built for the common American. A place to chase cheap thrills and all-you-can-eat fantasies. They sold you the intoxicating chance to become a king for a night. But behind that blinding billion-dollar glow, a cancer has been growing. What if the real horror story of Las Vegas isn't crime, but something far more sinister? A slow, deliberate hollowing out. A decay that the corporate overlords pray you'll never notice. This is a city rotting from the inside out, consumed by parasitic fees and insatiable greed. This predatory market, engineered to crush the middle class, has transformed the legendary strip into a magnificent stage, shining brighter than ever, performing for a graveyard of empty seats. Tonight, we're tearing down the set, but be warned, this is not just the story of Las Vegas. This is a grim omen for America itself. A cautionary tale of what happens when a nation's icon sells its very soul. Do not look away, because the truth we're about to expose will shatter every illusion you have about the world's most infamous city of sin. This glittering empire of excess wasn't born this way. In its infancy, it was a pathetic, dusty outpost in the unforgiving Nevada desert. A mere pit stop for prospectors and lost souls. But its fate was sealed by two events: the legalization of vice in the 1930s and the monumental construction of the Hoover Dam. An army of thousands of workers flooded the desert, and with their sweat and desperation came a ravenous hunger for distraction. In response, squalid little gambling dens began to fester along the streets. They peddled cheap booze and the poisonous lie of instant wealth. By the 50s and 60s, the infection had spread. Las Vegas had become a cultural contagion, its name synonymous with the glare of neon. It was a city of endless spectacle and casinos that never, ever let you go. They call it the Golden Age, a carefully constructed fantasy where legends like Frank Sinatra held court, and ordinary people were lured into a weekend of what felt like affordable luxury, the perfect trap. But beneath the dazzling surface, a darker truth always lurked. For years, the city's very foundation was built and controlled by the brutal hand of organized crime. The mob erected these temples of greed, skimming fortunes and forging a lawless kingdom where cash and liquor flowed in equal measure. Hollywood sold you a romance. But that brutal reign was merely overthrown by a new, more sophisticated syndicate: corporate America. By the 80s and 90s, the old godfathers were replaced by faceless boards of directors. The raw danger was sanitized. It was branded, packaged, and corporatized. The strip shot skyward, a testament to unchecked ego, with casinos growing more monstrous and attractions more grotesquely extravagant. The gritty, smoke-filled backrooms were bulldozed to make way for sterile mega-resorts, cynically targeting families with the cheap bait of roller coasters and chlorinated pools. For a moment, the corporate gamble appeared to succeed, and the Vegas machine boomed once more. But this growth was a house of cards, built upon a catastrophic hidden cost. The very promise that made Vegas a working-class escape began to systematically disintegrate. Those famous buffets that cost mere dollars? Their prices became an insult. Free parking, once a simple welcome, it became another line-item shakedown. Hotels flaunted deceptively cheap rooms only to ambush guests with predatory resort fees, invisible charges designed to punish and exploit the everyday visitor. The People's Playground was being auctioned off, remade into an exclusive sanctuary for the wealthy. By the 2010s, the gilded facade was cracking. The financial crisis had left deep, ugly scars. The digital siren's call of online gambling offered an easier fix, and the average American family was brutally priced out of a Vegas weekend. Then came the plague. It struck like a dagger to the heart of a city built on the very things the world now feared: crowds, closeness, and risk. The lights went out, and when they flickered back on, They illuminated a broken world. Now, in 2025, the story of Las Vegas is no longer about growth, but about a savage and widening divide. On the surface, the Strip puts on its most dazzling performance yet. But just beneath, a horrifying silence reigns. The tables are barren, and the laughter of the middle class has faded to a ghostly whisper. What was once for everyone is now a hollow showroom for the few. This is the grim reality you must accept before we step past the velvet ropes into the empty heart of the casinos and unearth the secrets Las Vegas is desperate to keep buried. In the 1980s and 1990s, they told you Las Vegas had reached its peak, a sleepless city of pure energy. The Strip pulsed with a manic, feverish rhythm, a relentless 24-hour assault on the senses, swarming with hopefuls from every corner of America, all lured by the siren song of a once-in-a-lifetime escape. The casino floors were a suffocating haze of cigarette smoke, and the deafening symphony of coins cascading into metal trays, punctuated by the relentless chime of slot machines, each one whispering a false promise of instant fortune. It was during this deceptive era that the infamous mantra, "What happens in Vegas stays in Vegas," transformed from a clever slogan into a cultural get-out-of-jail-free card. Back then, the dream was still within reach for the common person. Hotel rooms were shockingly cheap. Buffets were a gluttonous feast for the price of fast food. And the intoxicating allure of a jackpot convinced every soul they had a genuine shot at striking gold. Families poured in from Los Angeles, retirees were shipped in by the busload, and raucous bachelor parties owned the neon-drenched streets. This was the age of gaudy-themed behemoths like the Mirage, Luxor, and Treasure Island, each one selling a cheap ticket to a manufactured reality. This wasn't merely about gambling. It was a carefully constructed spectacle of fantasy and escape. But even then, a sinister reinvention was underway, extending its reach far beyond the felt of the gaming tables. Mega shows, headlined by magicians and comedians, and fading pop stars, transformed the Strip into a relentless 24/7 performance. Tourists were now lured not just to lose their savings, but to witness their idols in a city that peddled the lie of an endless party. And for a terrifyingly brief moment, the formula was a runaway success. The floodgates opened, visitor numbers exploded, casinos metastasized, and Vegas crowned itself the undisputed capital of excess. But lurking just beneath the gaudy, glittering facade, a dark transformation was already in motion. The raw, old-school mob money that built this town was being systematically replaced by cold, calculating corporate empires. And with them, a new, ruthless philosophy was born. Profit above all else, no matter the human cost. What the world saw as a golden age was, in truth, the first chapter in a tragedy that would gut the very soul of Las Vegas. The new millennium dawned on Las Vegas with a toxic cocktail of blinding ambition and ignored warnings. On the surface, the Strip had never seemed more invincible. Glistening glass towers clawed at the sky. Casinos sprawled like cancers, and developers spewed promises that Vegas would transcend its role as America's playground to become the world's undisputed entertainment mecca. For a few fleeting years, the beast seemed unstoppable. Mega resorts like the Venetian and Bellagio redefined opulence, while slick corporate marketing campaigns desperately peddled a new image of sophistication. This was a world of pretentious fine dining, overpriced designer boutiques, and high-stakes tables that screamed exclusivity, shutting out the masses. But behind this polished veneer, the middle class, the very lifeblood that had pumped through the city's veins for decades, was being slowly suffocated. The affordable weekend getaway hotel room was now a trap, laden with insidious hidden resort fees. The legendary buffet, once the democratic heart of Vegas dining, saw its prices double as its all-you-can-eat soul was ripped out. Even parking, once a simple free courtesy, was shamelessly weaponized as another revenue stream. For the working families who had once flocked here, the city no longer felt like a bargain. It felt like a shakedown. Insidiously, the bus tours began to vanish, and the joyous laughter of middle-aged couples on a budget faded into a ghostly echo on the vast, sterile casino floors. Then the 2008 financial crisis hit like a tidal wave, and the grand illusion of endless growth shattered into a million pieces. Construction ground to a halt, leaving skeletal hotels to stand as silent, rusting monuments to unchecked greed, while visitor numbers went into a freefall. Ordinary Americans, financially devastated by job losses and decimated savings, suddenly had had no disposable income to burn on a weekend of gambling. The arrogant casinos, which had bet everything on limitless demand, were suddenly staring at endless rows of empty chairs and silent slot machines. And while the super rich could still afford to play, the vast middle class that had been the city's bedrock for decades was in full retreat. This was the catastrophic turning point. The old winning formula, cheap thrills for the masses, was officially dead. It was replaced by a cold, elitist model, catering only to the privileged few who could afford obscene luxury. For millions of former loyalists, the Strip was no longer their city. The city that once threw its arms open and invited everyone to dream was now quietly, cynically locking its doors. And for the first time in its history, the haunting empty spaces in the casinos were impossible to ignore. By the 2010s, the hostile takeover was complete. Las Vegas was no longer run by charismatic mob bosses or flamboyant casino moguls, but by faceless, soul-crushing corporate conglomerates. The Strip devolved into a sterile showroom for global brands, where every square inch was viciously monetized, and every visitor was no longer a guest, but a walking, talking revenue stream to be exploited. This was the decade the despicable resort fee mutated from an irritating anomaly into a non-negotiable industry-wide scourge. Suddenly, your $99 hotel room was a lie, bloating to $150 or more, thanks to mandatory charges for things you never asked for or used. Wi-Fi, gym access, even a bottle of water. The promise of an affordable escape had curdled into a deceptive maze of surcharges, a system designed to make every tourist feel cheated and disgusted. And the assault didn't stop there. The casinos had a horrifying realization. Gambling was no longer their only or even their most lucrative hustle. With cold calculation, they pivoted to entertainment, fine dining, and nightlife to bleed their customers dry. Michelin-starred chefs descended like vultures. Exclusive clubs erected velvet ropes with astronomical entry fees, and concerts by global superstars became the new, impossibly expensive bait. Vegas still glittered, but it was a different, colder kind of gleam. Polished, brutally expensive, and designed to exclude. For the average person, the message was a slap in the face. Vegas was no longer built for you. Where a modest paycheck once bought a weekend of escapist fantasy, it now barely afforded a single hollow night. The locals, too, began to witness the soul of their city being sold off. Longtime workers who had built their lives on the dreams of everyday Americans now found themselves serving a detached elite, all while watching the casino floors become graveyards of empty slot machines where retirees and tourists once teemed with hope. The 2010s were also a harbinger of doom, marked by the insidious creep of online gambling and digital entertainment. Why bother flying to Nevada when the addictive thrill of the game was just a click away on a laptop or a phone? Vegas desperately tried to compensate with ever grander, more grotesque spectacles, but the core, rotting truth was unavoidable. The Strip was no longer the people's playground. It had become a luxury showroom, a gleaming facade that was becoming increasingly hollow inside. Then the 2020 struck Las Vegas like a bolt of lightning from a vengeful god, exposing just how terrifyingly fragile the city's entire foundation truly was. When the pandemic hit, the Strip, a monument to crowds, contact, and excess, fell eerily silent. For the first time in anyone's living memory, the slot machines ceased their hypnotic spinning. The blackjack tables stood like forgotten relics under shrouds of dust, and the iconic neon lights flickered over streets utterly devoid of human life. Casino doors were chained shut, and the legions of workers who depended on the non-stop flood of visitors were cast into the abyss of sudden unemployment. The city that arrogantly branded itself as untouchable learned a brutal lesson. It could be shut down completely and utterly overnight. When the chains finally came off, Las Vegas tried to roar back to life. The lights were almost blinding. The marketing was deafeningly loud. But the desperate comeback only revealed even deeper, more catastrophic cracks in its foundation. The visitors were fewer, their spending habits were timid, and the middle class, already suffocating, had even less disposable income to burn. What had once been a city of affordable indulgence was now a minefield of health protocols, predatory fees, and the chilling memory of its own vulnerability. Many tourists who dared to return whispered that the atmosphere felt fundamentally broken, as if the magic had finally, irrevocably bled out. Another, more lethal competitor surged forward, the digital world. Online casinos, sports betting apps, and even virtual reality gambling didn't just grow, they exploded. Why risk the staggering cost and the sheer hassle of a flight to Nevada when a few simple clicks could deliver the exact same adrenaline rush directly into your home? For the younger generation, Vegas was no longer the sacred temple of indulgence. It was just one option among a sea of others, and tragically, often not the most convenient one. The corporations strangling the Strip doubled down on their fatal strategy, pushing ever more obscene luxury experiences and exclusive entertainment to justify their ever-rising prices. Yet the silent, empty rows of slot machines screamed a different, more terrifying story. The pandemic didn't just disrupt Vegas. It violently accelerated the decay that had been festering for years. What was once a bustling, vibrant playground for millions now looked more like a hollowed-out monument to a dead past, desperately clawing to prove its relevance in a world that was rapidly and decisively moving on without it. Walking down the Strip in 2025, a visitor is assaulted by the brightest, most frantic lights Las Vegas has ever displayed. Towering LED screens project monstrous ads for luxury shows, designer brands, and clubs so exclusive they might as well be on another planet. From the outside, the city projects an image of invincible, almost obscene prosperity. But step inside the casinos, and the entire illusion shatters. Rows of slot machines hum their synthetic, lonely melodies, but the vast majority of seats sit cold and untouched. The blackjack tables stand half deserted, their dealers flipping cards with a robotic emptiness, their eyes glazing over as they stare at the empty chairs across from them. Cocktail waitresses pace like ghosts, their trays nearly weightless, waiting for customers who are never going to arrive. This is not the Vegas of the past. This is its beautiful, tragic corpse. The city's transformation into a luxury fortress has made it more extravagant, but also profoundly more empty. The ordinary Americans who once gave it a soul, the road-tripping families, the retirees chasing a glimmer of nostalgia, the weekend gamblers praying for that one life-changing stroke of luck, have been ruthlessly priced out and cast aside. What's left is a city groveling for the ultra-wealthy and international elites, but even they only visit briefly, preferring the sterile isolation of private villas, exclusive clubs, and luxury malls to the actual casino floors. The very heart that Vegas itself has allowed to stop beating. The very gamble that built this city has been shamefully cast aside, a forgotten relic of a bygone era. For the people who live here, these changes are a betrayal impossible to ignore. The old-timers will tell you, the very pulse of the Strip has flatlined. Oh, the noise and the lights are still there, a deafening, blinding facade, but the soul? It's been viciously ripped out. Vegas glitters, but its glow is now a cold, exclusive light for the chosen few. It has become a grotesque paradox, a city burning brighter than ever, yet haunted by the chilling specter of its own emptiness. The fantasy it sells to the world is one of endless indulgence, but the reality is a silent, desolate stage, a lonely theater where the audience has simply vanished. But do not be fooled. This story of empty casinos in Las Vegas is not merely some local tragedy. It is a horrifying mirror, reflecting a deep sickness spreading across America and the entire world. For decades, Vegas was the great equalizer, the promise that anyone from any walk of life could step into that neon dream and feel like royalty for a night. Its cynical destruction as a middle-class paradise reveals how the gaping chasm of economic disparity has poisoned not just our entertainment, but opportunity itself. Where the Strip once roared with the American dream of a lucky break, it now whispers the grim American reality of a rigged game. The numbers themselves tell a damning story. Sure, visitor counts have supposedly rebounded, but the average spending per guest has exploded, a clear signal of who is now being courted. The reports are a slap in the face. Fewer and fewer families can afford to come, while the revenue charts are dominated by luxury travelers. The corporate operators shamelessly defend their parasitic resort fees and predatory prices as industry standards. But for ordinary Americans, these costs are a wall. The result is a city thriving on paper while its spirit rots from within. The comparisons paint an even bleaker picture. Remember Atlantic City, the so-called Vegas of the East? It was driven into the ground by the very same corporate greed that valued profits over people. Look at Macau in China, a gambling juggernaut that now dwarfs Vegas, but its entire model is engineered to serve the global elite and high-stakes gamblers, not the masses. Even New Orleans, once a sanctuary of affordable culture, is watching as skyrocketing costs mercilessly push out its most loyal visitors. The trend is undeniable and utterly sickening. Destinations once built for everyone are being systematically converted into exclusive playgrounds for the wealthy, leaving behind cavernous, empty spaces that no amount of neon can ever hope to disguise. The stories from the locals are even more stark. Dealers who once commanded roaring casino floors now stare into a vacant abyss for hours. Taxi drivers and service workers speak of the ghost fleets of tour buses, lamenting the loss of the everyday tourist whose generous tips were the lifeblood of the city. That electric sense of community, of a shared adventure, has been bled dry, replaced by a cold, transactional atmosphere where every human interaction is measured in cold, hard cash. Las Vegas is no longer just a story about a city of lights. It is a dire warning. When accessibility is murdered, when profit margins devour the human experience, even the brightest stage is plunged into darkness. These empty casinos are not an economic problem. They are a cultural omen. They are a terrifying reminder that America's icons can be snuffed out, not with a bang, but with a creeping, hollow silence. A glittering corpse, bright on the outside, rotting on the inside, slowly fading into utter irrelevance. Las Vegas hasn't disappeared. The Strip still screams with neon. The shows still try to dazzle, and the casinos swing open their doors every night. But what's gone forever is the very soul that once made this city an unforgettable legend. The hearty laughter of retirees on a bus tour. The excited buzz of young couples escaping for a weekend. The thunderous roar of a packed blackjack table. These sounds are now just haunting echoes, replaced by the chilling silence of empty chairs. Vegas shines brighter than ever, but it shines for a dangerously shrinking number of people. This city has been twisted into a sterile luxury showroom where the middle class has been quietly, ruthlessly locked out. These empty casinos are more than a business problem. They are a monument to what happens when profit is valued over people, when access is hoarded by the few instead of offered to the many. Las Vegas was once America's great equalizer, a place where anyone could take a chance and roll the dice. Now, it stands as a grim warning that even our most iconic dreams can be hollowed out and sold to the highest bidder. The question is no longer if the lights will stay on. They will. The terrifying question is who those lights are truly for. Can Vegas find its way back to everyone, or has it crossed a moral event horizon from which there is no return? That answer may not just decide the fate of one city, but dictate the soulless direction of countless others. What do you think? Is Las Vegas doomed to become a hollow monument to its own glorious past, or can it claw its way back and restore its soul? Unleash your thoughts in the comments below. And if you demand more deep dives into the hidden, ugly reality shaping our world, don't forget to like this video, subscribe, and brace yourself, because the next story is waiting. The final hour could be far closer than anyone dares to admit.